Hey, welcome to Ike's Vintage Tech. Do you have a Molar Mac that is doing this and you want it to do this? Stay tuned, I'll show you how to fix it. Welcome back. Now, if you remember in my last video, at the end, I got this thing to boot up, it powered on. However, the video had a purplish blue smear across the whole monitor. Now, I was about ready to pack it up and get onto this later on down the road. But right after I finished editing the video, somebody on Facebook posted that it is actually a known issue with a lot of these systems that the 12-volt rail on the little connector here for the motherboard off the power supply, it can have cold solder joints, and that's exactly what this one had. I gave it a little wiggle, and it fixed itself, as you saw in the beginning of the video. So I'm going to make that a little bit more permanent than just a wiggle. We're going to reflow the solder on this connector and put it back in the system, and this should be good to go. This thing is now done after this, assuming we don't break anything here. It's pretty simple. I'm going to have another camera on it here. All right, so I got my solder station set up, camera set up. I got a good view of the pins here. It's this little connector right through here, specifically on the 12-volt rail, which is on this side of the connector. We're going to go ahead and touch that up real quick. Let's put a little bit of flux on there. All right, we got the flux on there. I'm going to clean that up afterwards, so that way it's not just all sticky and left on there. Soldering iron is on, and this should be real simple. Now I'm noticing that some of this solder is just like disappearing as soon as I put the tip to it here. So I'm adding as I need it. You don't want to glob it on there. You don't want it to look like a ball. You do want it to still look like a little cone. And you just want it to wet. That's the term they use. You want to wet the solder and just add a little bit when you need it. There we go. So that's it. I already inspected this board. As far as I can tell, those are the only cracked solder joints. It is a pretty thick cable at a 90-degree angle against the board. You got to imagine 26 years of that just hanging off the board. It'll do that. So this should fix the issue. It's very simple to do. You saw, I did that in real time. The only scenes I cut out was, letting the soldering iron heat up. So there's really not much to it. Once I get this back together and cleaned up, we're going to turn the thing on and verify it works. Assuming it works, we're going to slap it all together and it will be done. I could have done this in the last video if I knew this was the issue. I'd already literally just finished encoding the video for upload to YouTube, and that's when I saw the posts on the Macintosh group on Facebook. That's another thing. These groups on Facebook or Reddit, they are great resources for guys like me and you that have these old machines and we want to fix them. Now, I've got over 20 years experience in electronics, and sometimes you don't know the easy fix because you're overthinking it or you're looking at everything else, or in my case I thought it was going to be the flyback transformer, and that's what a lot of people said too on Facebook. But it turned out that one specific post led me in this direction, and that was it. So when you have decades of experience of people working on these things, they tend to know what the common issues are, and then in this case, that's the fix. So let's get this together and see how it works. All right, we got it all back together. I did a retrobrite on it while I was doing the rust removal process, so the plastic is a lot whiter than it used to be. I'll do a before and after show of that. I'll just put that on some still images over the video here. I also got everything cleaned out completely, all the cobwebs, all the dust, got that nice and clean again. I added a zip drive that did not have before, it just had the blanking plate, which is pretty awful if you think about it. If you're going to make a machine that has a permanent divot cut right out of it, you should put a zip drive in it. Don't put a blank. Imagine if you're trying to finish your term paper and you go to put your zip disk in and it doesn't have one, and you got to find the one that does. So I don't like that Apple made that an option. It should have just been on every single system back then. For what they were charging for these things at the time, a zip disk wouldn't have been too much to ask for. Now, on top of that, I did repair the button here. I'll put a little picture of what I did there. I basically took my soldering iron and an old zip tie and I melted the plastic in so that works. Now, we're going to power it on here for the first time. I assume everything's going to work because I trust my work, but let's see how that does right now. Got power, got sound. The other thing I noticed when I was getting this thing repaired is that the sound card, or not the sound card, the sound cable was a little finicky. So I think I'm going to have to replace that. If I wiggled it in the wrong direction, I would lose audio altogether. It wouldn't chime. I believe it's the cable because I tested each end of the cable, and only when I moved it around the center, and that's where they really twisted it down. So I'm not sure if I can get that cable. I can probably make it from an old IDE cable and recover the ends on the other side of this. So I think that's what I'm going to do. It is just a 40-pin cable that they split out 3 ways on the other end. So that shouldn't be too terribly hard as long as I keep the pin out the same. Beautiful screen. Before I did any of this, before I did the solder job, I did fit the image and color corrected it, the standard way. I didn't get an actual fancy color corrector on there, but it looks a lot better. Now, I'm not sure how much the camera's picking up. I'm sure there's a flicker. I don't have a fancy camera that can match the frame rate, but this thing looks great. It sounds great. It's not popping and clicking anymore. It is clean. It is good to go. So the only thing I'm going to have to do after this is, because I didn't have the master slave cables for the CD-ROM and zip drive, I had to pick one. So I picked zip drive. What I'm going to eventually do, very soon actually, is put in a SATA controller inside this thing and run a SATA hard drive, and then I'll run the hard drive cable up to the CD-ROM. It's pretty simple. And then this thing is good to go. The floppy drive works. I did a thorough clean out of all the drives. They were filthy and disgusting. This whole thing was just a mess inside. Basically, the school said, all right, we're done with these old things. Let's put them in the basement. And then that's where they sat for years. So collecting dust, bugs, moisture, mildew, all that gnarly stuff. And it's working again. It came from absolute destroyed to running. And that's what I love. Little reminder, this was the old motherboard. The rust that the battery just chewed up on this thing was unrecoverable. Board switched around, who cares, it's going to the trash can soon. But the whole board is toast. I'm going to recover the memory slots because they're hard to buy. So if I have a motherboard that has a broken slot, that's perfect. Anything else on here I might recover, I'll desolder. But yeah, the rest of this, once I'm done salvaging what I need, it's going right in the trash. So that right there is a win. This thing came from nothing, and here it is running again, 26 years old, and running great. The only thing I'd change on it is I'm going to put a Noctua fan in there, and everything else works great. I hope you didn't hear the car driving by. I don't have a fancy studio yet. But yeah, this thing, I'm very happy. I hope you like the channel. I hope you like this content. I have more videos to come. New systems I just picked up. So stay tuned. There's more to see. Thank you very much. Take care.